Okay, so I'm Valentina, talking about designing for ephemeral technology. This is a talk about the design process, and I hope it will be useful for designers, for programmers, to understand what's in the minds of designers, and in general, to know something more about how it's shaped the world that is out there. So, what does it mean, ephemeral? It means transitory, something that goes away very quickly. And I'm 32 years old. This is meaningful for the talk because it's a lot about time. And I'm a graphic designer, a typographer, and in general an expert in printing. But I'm a co-founder of a startup that is into tech, so I shift as well to tech and to the web. So from 2004 to 2009, I've been a type designer assistant. And this is how it looks like to be a type designer assistant, because you work with a lot of stuff, or at least in those years, you work with a lot of stuff that is very detailed. I don't know if you know about kerning and spatial spacing between characters. When you work with someone that is building a typeface, what you do most of the day is look at very tiny details, print out stuff, look at it with your eyes, and decide if it's good or bad. And while I was working in this way, well, what happened then was that a lot of technology, and it's just not so much, but it was enough for type designer to change, came out. So something like multiple master, there is a technology that helps you to grow different weights of typefaces, interpolating the shape of a typeface. This maybe for programmers look kind of weird. Why? You didn't have that kind of tool. No. So we were just building different weights, redesigning them, and adjusting all the details. So it's a tedious kind of work. But what happens is if you grow like a type designer assistant doing that kind of job, and then it comes out a technology that does that for you, well, your job is not there anymore, basically. So in 2009, I was still a lot into typography because obviously I was also a graphic designer, and I decided to enroll in book design at the university in Reading. And they have a wholesome department for typography and graphic design. And this is how it looks like to study graphic design, book design at Reading. It means that you have to look and touch things to be a typographer. That means a person is an expert in using actually typefaces. And it looks kind of dated, but it's the best way because instead of learning a lot of technical stuff, you get your hands dirty in the real objects. And this is Professor Emeritus Michael Twyman. He founded the entire department and is lecturing about ephemera. And in that case, ephemera means like stuff that you don't use anymore. It can be posters or tickets or whatever. And he's collecting a lot of that kind of stuff. And in 2010, I graduated as a book designer. And I was doing this kind of stuff. Normal, plain books. And what happened is that in 2010, it was out the Kindle, the first international version, and then the iPad. So what does it mean for you, this? That again, what you studied is just, on some level, useless. Because at that time, what it was happening was the death of printing. As you probably know, the entire publishing field was in a big crisis, and magazines shift all to digital, and that meant something very big for people that study typography and book design in a traditional way. But I want to say that that was awesome, because if you're a designer, you need to understand what's important for you, learning something that is related to the process that you adopt, being a designer, not more the details, the tech details of what you're doing. Because, yes, at 29, maybe you realize that basically everything is already useless from the point of view of the technical knowledge that you have. And if you look at how quick it was the process of changing in the last years, the technology related to printing. So we started with Woodblock Printing at the very beginning, then the Gutenberg Bible came, and you see that there's quite a lot of time between one and the other. And then came lithography, which is the base of offset printing. And then offset printing, then the web, iPhone. And then you see in the middle, there was a lot of this kind of ephemeral technology. I mean, technology, I don't know if Any one of you recognize this thing? Okay, I used it quite a lot, actually, in the first years of the university. It's kind of a weird kind of, it's not a floppy, but it's not CD, it's not anything now, because you cannot even use it anymore. But, so technology in the last year changed a lot. And the increasing speed of innovation in technology, it's kind of awesome on one side for us. That is the bright side. But then there's a dark side of this, because this didn't only happen because we want new things and we're just progressing in technology. This happened also because we have something called planned obsolescence. I don't know if any of you ever came across with this concept, but basically planned obsolescence is the production of goods with an economically short useful lives, so the customers will have to make repeat purchases. Basically, what happened in the Depression time in the States, they were really worried about the fact that a lot of people didn't have a job. And they thought, well, this is happening because goods are lasting so long that people don't buy new things. So we just need these things to last for less time. So they said, miracles do happen. They must be planned in order to occur. Similarly, in this time of economic crisis, we must work out our own salvation. So the idea was, if we build things that are going to be broken, not in so much time, and they have short lives, then we can all work more, because we will have the need of having new things. And yes, it sounds crazy, but it was actually a theory, and on some levels, it was applied truly. So it's like it was applied with flashlights, and they decided that the bulb of a flashlight had to last for less time, so you have to buy it again. And today you can see it in electronic parts of any device and in software support as well. Because when it's not economically an advantage, they just drop it. And maybe you don't find some technology that is just of the last year, the previous year. So it is not only an economical thing, it's also an aesthetic thing, because sometimes products are not interesting for us anymore from a point of view of the aesthetic. We don't like them anymore. You can see this in fashion happening all the time. You just don't want to put on that shirt that was fashionable the last year, is not fashionable anymore, you don't want it. And it's a mechanism that is happening. Or maybe sometimes they are changing laws or habits. And you can see this with the landline. I mean, the landline is still effective, it's still a good way to connect. I mean, normal phone in your house is still working, but you're just not using it anymore because you have the mobile phone. And it's just a change of habit, and you will probably not switch back, even if it was working fine. And also sometimes, also for companies, it's an economic problem, because repairing or doing maintenance or reusing upgrade is just too costly for them. So they just don't support it because there's no advantage sometimes. And you can see this kind of job, like repairing shoes, is not affordable anymore, because you can just buy a new pair of shoes and spending less. So these kind of jobs are not there anymore because of this, basically. And you can see also happening with battery. Batteries is just not an adventure for companies to change, to make it possible to change the battery. Sometimes you just throw it away, the device, and just take a new one. And so the question is, why we don't decide that this is not sustainable and we don't want it anymore? We don't want planned obsolescence in the things that we are buying because it's wrong on some levels. Well, the thing is that our brain actually is made in a way that we like things when they are new, because novelty is probably one of the most powerful signals to determine what we pay attention to the world. So what is happening in our brain is that we look for new things. So humans are novelty-seeking creatures. That means that in our brain, when we see something new, what is triggering is a response of dopamine. So it is released, the dopamine in your brain. So what do you want is just more of that kind of new stuff. But this is important. It was important for us because the seeking behavior, humans doing more risky new things, it's happening because we want new things. Otherwise, we would have stayed like we were. And so this is an important key factor in why we still want new things. And the consequences are also that there's a shift in the perception of durability as a value. If you look at this object, I mean, if you had an education in product design, your professor will never tell you, you know, oh, this is an object of everyday use. You put something so fragile that if you drop it, you know, it breaks. This is not a principle of design. It goes against any kind of rule that your professors or during your education you will be told. But it is happening. And it is happening because there's this shift. We don't care as much about this principle of duration as we cared before. So now you buy something like this and you don't really care about it because we just want new things. And we know that this will not last for long. So there's the progress and innovation. There's the planned obsolescence, and then the desire for novelty that we have inside of us. So the result is still that every technical skill I'm learning is already useless because things are changing so fast nowadays that it's just impossible to stay updated. But keep calm and don't panic, or maybe just a tiny bit. So what if technical skills become quickly obsolete? Then what it is design? Because you as a designer, or you as a person that is working with a designer, you have to understand, so what it is design if it's not about building a set of knowledge, skills, technical skills? Well, design is about creativity. But a lot of people get it slightly wrong about it, because creativity doesn't mean that you're like this romantic figure of the artist that is expressing himself or herself, you know, and don't talk with him because, you know, he's thinking about stuff, he's just creating stuff. And forget about explicable genius, because it's not about being a genius. It's about problem-solving processes, basically, design. And I present to you this guy. If you don't know him, please look for him. Is Bruno Munari, was an Italian product designer that theorized quite a lot about the design and how the designer should work. And he created awesome stuff from the point of view of design. This is Falkland lamp. It was kind of an innovation because it took something that this kind of fabric came from a company that was producing basically tides. So he decided to use this kind of material to do this lamp. And basically he theorized what is called the design method. And it's still at the base of a lot of education related to design. So you start from a problem and you go to a solution, basically, in design. But usually think, okay, in the middle there's ideas, creativity, whatever it takes to come up with an amazing solution. But that's not true. What's in the middle, there's a definition of the problem, research, analysis about it, then creativity, then technology, that means also choosing the technology, prototyping, and then testing. If you don't go through all of this, then basically you're not designing anything. You just throw in ideas there and you're not validating anything. So technology, in terms of the technology, comes quite late in this process. So that's also the point of it. Technology is changing, but the design process is this one. And technology is just a part of it. And what's also important is that when you define a problem, it means that you have to find the context and the time. That means that sometimes you have to solve a problem in a way, in a specific way, because you have a context. So you need to decide, okay, maybe this thing has to be cheap. And that is a constraint. Constraints are very important when you define a problem to find a solution. Because if you have a white piece of paper, you will not come up with a solution. If you have a good sets of constraints, then you can work it out. As a designer, I have to say that having a blank piece of paper is the worst thing ever because you're not free. You just don't know what to do. So you have to give yourself constraints. You have to make a research about what you're going to do because that gives you the solution. Otherwise, you're building up on nothing, basically. So then what it is creativity? It's simplifying solutions. Because obviously doing things in a simple way seems very obvious to people when they look at something that is very simple, but it's actually quite complex. So taking away stuff takes a lot of creativity. Creativity is there in taking away and putting some simple stuff in it, basically. And yes, so what is, again, creativity? Is having a method and adapt it. Because sometimes you have a method for working on things to find a solution, but you also have to be able to adapt it quickly to something new. And that means, in my case, but in a lot of other situations for all the designers that started working in printing, I mean having a process that you can easily adapt if you're changing the technologies that you're using. Obviously, you have to make a lot of research, study a lot, but still, if you have a good process based on the design process, that you can keep going on and working on something else. If you base your work only on skills, then you're probably obsolete very quickly. So the new designer for Munari knows how to approach human needs according to a precise method. We wish to make him conscious of his creative power, not scared of new facts, and independent of formulas on his own work. Creativity depends on the number of connections we build between things learned or experienced. So you have to look outside and see how things are working and then create connections, basically, based on what you experience, the real world. So not on technical skills. Design is not based on that, basically. And that's it. So if you want to know more, I put a list of resources here about planned obsolescence. There are a lot of theories. There are a lot of interesting facts about how it's happening now as well. And you can just know more and read more. Okay. Do you have questions or whatever you want to ask? No. Great.
Just one comment. Many technical skills are going away. The thing about HTML, for example, is that it keeps a backwards layer, or at least it tries to. So hopefully that we can read the documents that we do now, that we can also read them in 20 years and 50 years. If it works out, it's a different matter, but I think at least the people that try to put it forward at the same time to give us tools to make good designs, to have workable designs, also want to make it worthwhile for a long, long time and not only for 1 year or for one device or something.
Yes, I think it is kind of frustrating that you know that maybe something will not be usable anymore at some point. And we see it happens in everyday life, because what's in my zip, I cannot read it anymore. And sometimes even CDs, and sometimes I cannot open. I had to learn Flash at some point at university. I know it's shameful, but I did it. And I cannot open those projects maybe anymore and look at them, because maybe it's just very difficult. And sometimes in design is happening a lot in the printing area also, that you have like freehand files or Quark Express files, and maybe you're not even able to open them. So we need still to come up also with solutions, not only to make stuff that will last for longer, but also to kind of keep what we did before still accessible in some way, because sometimes you cannot really access some stuff. It's just there, but you cannot even use it. And I can tell you that, like, with the shift from print to digital with ebooks, is getting kind of nasty there, because then you have to open files that are quite old, and then you also have to think about the future. So maybe you make an ebook now and you think about, will it be readable at some point in 10 years? So yes, there's a lot of that as well, and we keep forgetting sometimes, because everything is going so fast now.